Hi, my name is Catalina Rojas, and guess I'm a peace lover, CrossFit amateur practitioner when my knee allows me, healthy food obsessed person, also a mom of a 5-year-old. I work at PCD Network with my husband, who is the CEO and founder of the organization. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia. I started my studies there. I did political science as a bachelor's. And as I was doing political science, I also became involved with a number of citizens initiatives for peace, and I started in a way my activism for peace career as I was a college student, and those were the early 90s, which was a very troubled time for in terms of the activity of various manifestations of the armed conflict and the drug war in Colombia. And in the late 90s, where things were actually pretty critical in terms of the spread of insurgency and also the degradation of the, uh, uh, the armed conflict. I got a scholarship to do a master's in peace and development in Spain in a wonderful university, Jaume I in Valencia, Spain, where I obtained a lot of support from the local and also national government of Spain to complete my master's. And that's where I initiated sort of like what became one of my specialties, which is studying the intersection of gender and peace building, something that was not planned but became later one of um, my research interest and my areas where I consulted with various organizations. And while I was doing my master's there, I wanted to pursue further studies, and I was looking for international relations, but found an amazing program, the oldest conflict resolution program in to date, which is the School of Conflict Analysis and Resolution that is located in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And I was lucky enough to be accepted there and start my PhD, which led me to meet who today is my current husband, Dr. Craig Selizer, who is a very well-known peace builder, practitioner, scholar, entrepreneur in peace as well. So we sort of started building a career in peace and social change. And then later I continue my own work on gender and women's activism, but later we both again professionally met in the form of a strengthening and building our social enterprise for peace called Peace and Collaborative Development Network, where I am the director of innovation. Yes, sure. PCD network is what we call the go-to hub for the global social change community. It's really a community of peace building, conflict resolution, humanitarian affairs, international relations, social entrepreneurship, gender, and many other fields that are working for positive social change around the world. We have a community of 36,000 individuals in about 180 countries. It's an open source network where everyone is invited to join and share. We have around 30,000 blogs, and we keep growing. Well, to me, it's about peer-to-peer networking. What is the gist or the importance of networks such as PCD Network or AFP? And it goes hand in hand with what Peace One Day, some of the foundations of Peace One Day, which is like who is really the main agent in creating peace in this world. So is it organizations, is it NGOs, is it governments, or is it people? And like Peace One Day, the answer is individuals. But individuals need to amplify their voices, and This is not about NGOs or experts, quote unquote, telling people what to do, but this is people actually connecting, breaking the barriers of global South divide and sharing their experiences. So peer-to-peer networking is incredibly powerful for that reason. And PCD Network and AFP are two of the many, many examples of how people building peace and sustainable positive change are doing it these days. Oh yeah, so before I became a mom, and soon after I finished my graduate degree, I joined a wonderful organization here in Washington, D.C. that advocated for increasing a couple things, increasing the amount of development investment from the U.S. government around the world to development countries, and second, within that increase of investment, to increase the attention paid to women and gender perspective in such investments, and seeing women as a key puzzle in producing sustainable development in very many different various countries. Sorry. So my specific role at Women Thrive was to build partnerships with women's organizations. So we had a great model. Instead of opening chapters of Women Thrive throughout Central America and West Africa or any other area, we looked for already networks from women from those countries to partner with. And we built a network that started in 2008 and has grown tremendously since then. Yes, absolutely. So I could say that my longest career is that of a peace activist, because soon after I joined my first year of college studying political science in a university that is downtown Colombia, by myself, I found myself talking, meeting, getting to know NGOs and recently formed NGOs that were working with the sole purpose of bringing citizens together to request both the government and the different actors of violence to request the ceasefire and the immediate termination of the conflict. And I was 19 by then. By then, when I was 19, we were in the process of writing a constitution that finalized the 1991 Constitution. And I was fortunate enough to be in the same room and meeting recently demobilized individuals from various insurgencies that had turned in their weapons. They're from M19 and other indigenous organizations. And since then, I continued with my studies, support, and by then I was part of the youth groups, not anymore, but 20, 22 years ago, I was part of the youth groups that were part of the Citizens Initiatives for Peace. Never ceased to work on that same request to ask both the government and all armed actors, whether they were left-wing, right-wing, government sponsored forms of violence, that citizens were more than fed up, and that was 19 years ago, with the violence, and that we requested all parts to sit on a table and build peace. It is a long road full of mobilizations, full of failure, lots and lots of failure, because in the years that, in the 90s, the armed situation escalated to levels that are, as all of you know, Colombia in the 90s was not a happy place, and the northern experts were starting to call Colombia as a failed state. And what resulted after that, and I was already here in the United States, was the right-wing government, together with the U.S. government, decided to invest in increasing the investment for war, unfortunately, to strengthen the military as a proposition to weaken the insurgencies and force them to a negotiation, or what they really wanted was a total military defeat. And what we saw subsequently was that we reached some of the highest numbers in internally displaced people, second as after only Sudan and Syria, or third, nearing 7, 8 million internally displaced people. Certainly um, the biggest humanitarian crisis in the Western Hemisphere at a huge, huge cost. And all these problems and sad story, I'm happy to say that for the first time in my life, and something I never expected, because I always thought that I was doing all this work for my son or his children, is that 4 years ago, um, the biggest insurgency, FARC, it's the acronym in Spanish, Colombian Revolutionary Armed Forces, and the government of Santos agreed to sit down, and for the past 4 years, they negotiated over 52 years of armed conflict. And I am happy to say, in the context of the Peace One Day, that 2016 was the year that peace was actually signed in Colombia. And I'm not saying by any means that this is the end, but rather this is a beginning, because we all have seen other examples like in Ireland, South Africa, and Central America, where after the peace is signed, that doesn't mean that all the problems disappear, but it's giving us hope, and it's giving us tools to deal with our differences. And that's, to me, why I'm so happy and so honored to be part of this celebration with Peace One Day, just to say that for those countries that look like, oh my gosh, they're going to call us failed state, this is the end, that if Colombia did it, uh, all of you that are currently in an armed conflict, to never lose hope and never lose faith. And as individuals, we have a responsibility to keep working for peace. It happened. It happened for Colombians. And hopefully what comes afterwards um, would be the opportunity to show people what Colombia can do, and how can we deal with our differences in a peaceful way. But I do want to use this platform to tell all of you who are listening and participating of Peace One Day what's going to happen very soon for Colombians. On the day, October 2nd, Colombians in Colombia and Colombians outside of Colombia are all called to participate in a vote, and to answer the following question: whether you want to support the peace agreement. It's a yes or no question. So on October 2nd, we are all going to be called to vote. In my personal case, I'm voting to say yes. I want to support the peace agreement. And if you have friends from Colombia, if you are a Colombian listening to these, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, because that's your personal decision, but I will urge you to look at the opportunity and the future that we have to create peace, sustainable, and to look forward to the next 40 years of a prosperous future. To me, what you do, it's a perfect intersection of something that could seem very daunting and very impossible, and sometimes it's like, how am I going to bring about peace in the whole world? I'm just one person. When I was 19, I actually believed that I single-handedly could produce peace in Colombia, but I'm wiser now, and I know that wasn't the case. I might have been a peace activist, and there is a very, very small contribution of what it means to bring about peace in Colombia, what I did. But what is important is that in Peace One Day, you can really see that intersection of what one individual can do to produce systemic change at a global sphere, because we're all on September 21st thinking about the same thing, which is bring about peace, reflect about peace. And you don't have to be a president. You don't have to be a person of a leader in a big size NGO. It's all about what you can do as an individual, whether it is playing a sport, doing a walk, sharing a tweet, creating a story, sending a picture, calling a relative you haven't done so. It's whatever you do it thinking about peace. And that intersection of millions and millions of individuals doing something is what produces systemic change. So that's what Peace One Day means to me. First thing I must tell you is that I did not know that South by Southwest or the Dewey Award existed. So when I first got the email, I actually thought it was a scam. So I deleted it, like we most do, because it's also a testament of how rushed and how prevented, we live in this world when we feel like we're just bombarded with information. And luckily, they contacted me again and kind of said, hey, do you know who we are? We are the South by South Dewey Award, South by Southwest. And so I realized that I had made a tremendous mistake. And I mean, ignorance is bliss, because South by Southwest is one of the biggest worldwide events where it's unique to see an intersection where music meets culture, meets technology, meets innovation. I mean, how didn't know that? This is the place where Twitter was launched. This is the place where some of the apps that become huge and change the world and how we behave are launched. And the Dewey Awards is a very specific part during the education days. The days in that festival are divided: education, music, film, to digital innovators. And to me, it's a huge honor, not only personal, but it's a huge honor for PCD Network, because it's showing the use of technology to democratize access to information. And because in a world in which we think we have loads of information, but not everyone has access to the same amount of information. And information is key to transform your life. So what PCDN does is leveling the play field in terms of accessing of information. And we love to use technology for good. So to me, it's a huge, tremendous honor to now understand what South by Southwest means, and to be recognized as a digital innovator in terms of the work that PCD Network does. Well, activities like what you're doing with Peace One Day, knowing that peace is no longer viewed as the tree hugger hippie, sandal wearing, incense smelling activity of three people that no one really cares about, but that this is a movement where unites women, men, children, the elderly, all over the world. It's no longer European or US, but it's a worldwide event that occurs in Africa, in South America, in Asia, everywhere. That inspires me a lot. But also, to be honest, that's sort of like what inspires me at a macro level. But my daily life, I try to live my life according to my values to maximize peace or harmony or gratefulness in my life. So it's trying to connect with purpose, trying to eat healthy, trying to stay active. I try to live a life that sort of embodies the values of what I understand is peace, which is a lot of joy, a lot of health, a lot of activity, and doing things with purpose. I don't believe that in the name of any cause we should work ourselves to the deterioration of our personal health or the health of our family or children, but that we should live a life according to our values, and that's what I try to do.